In this book review, I'm going to cover the parts that I thought were the most important and the parts that were the most interesting to me. So if any of the subjects interest you, then I recommend you get the book because it does give more in-depth examples on what I explain in this video. Let's get started. Okay, so the book is called The Untethered Soul, The Journey Beyond Yourself by Michael A. Singer. The way that this book goes is, the way that it's written is that it's separated into 5 parts. Part 1 being awakening consciousness, part 2 experiencing energy, part 3 freeing yourself, part 4 going beyond, and part 5 living life. Part 1, Awakening Consciousness, is about how everybody has an inner roommate, and everybody's inner roommate is the voice inside their head. So the voice that tells you you shouldn't be doing that, you shouldn't be eating that. Oh, person walks by, you like their shirt. The voice inside your head says, wow, that's a really nice shirt. That's your inner roommate. That's your inner voice. Awakening the conscious is to realize that that voice isn't yours. It's in your head, but it doesn't mean that it's your voice. That voice can experience life, experience thoughts, feelings, ideas, and that doesn't mean that they're fully yours. Pulling yourself back from your inner roommate and realizing that you can watch your inner roommate experience life at the very center of yourself. You are merely the one who is experiencing life. So imagine yourself in a theater with 30 other people experiencing life, experiencing this movie. Now when you're really involved in the movie, so immersed because of the feelings that it's making you feel, you forget that you're in the theater. You forget that you're crying in a theater with 30 other people. So it's saying how you don't have to be immersed in the movie that your inner roommate is pushing against your eyes. How to center yourself and to stay centered, and to know this is to awaken your conscious. Okay, now part 2 is experiencing energy. Energy can be good, bad, could be when you're nervous, when you're sad. Whatever energy you're experiencing that flows into your life, you want to make sure to experience it and then to let it go. In a case of like bad energy, when you have it and you don't release it, it's bad because say you got cheated on by a person with a Mustang. Somewhere down the line, you meet somebody, then you think that you're over it, but you never release that energy. That same energy is going to build up and remind you of like the same events, and you're gonna feel the same feelings. Being conscious that you're experiencing it and that it's not you who's actually feeling those emotions, like if you don't process it that way. Part 3 is freeing yourself. Here's an example about how everybody's mind, to picture it as is a little house in a big forest, and how in that house is what you're used to, you know, your customs, how you make food, how you communicate. And it says that when you get into the habit of filtering your thoughts, events that happen in your life, you become less afraid of going towards the walls of that house, and you're more comfortable with opening the door and knowing that there's more to life than the little house that you're living in the middle of the forest. But a lot of the times that as people, we don't do that because we learn fear. Fear is what makes us stay away from the walls, tells us like, you know, anything on the other side, because it is unknown, it's considered dangerous. So we don't ever lean towards the walls of the house. Removing the thorns instead of learning how to live with them. There's a person who has a thorn in his or her arm. Over time, he realizes that, you know, as he walks and he hugs people and does other activities in his life, the thorn it's getting rubbed against, it's getting bothered. So he creates this apparatus to shelter the world, you know, from his thorn. He's able to find, you know, he improves on his apparatus, and he's able to get to a point where the apparatus works great, right? So it's able to be hidden, it works well, and then like 2 months later, something else happens to where the apparatus falls apart and it's no longer to shield his thorn anymore because life happens. Or the whole point is to take out your thorns, face your problems, face your conflicts, and deal with them as they come. Don't let them stick around too long. Don't conform to your thorns. I know this is easier said than done, but it says it in the book. Part 3, freeing yourself, is basically the effects of part 2. So like if you weren't to do this will happen. Okay, so part 4 is going beyond. I have my notes right here on my phone, so that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at my notes. It's about letting go of false solidity. The very act of having to hold yourself together is suffering itself. When we understand that life doesn't go the way that we always plan it to, and don't get offended when it doesn't then ourself doesn't get hurt or feel like the world is against us. We know that what happens in the world can make us feel emotions, but that doesn't mean that we are those emotions. To go beyond is to know and remember that life is something we are conscious of living through. It's kind of trailing off of part 3. Like to go beyond is to really understand the concept and then to live your life according to the concept. When we don't get offended because things don't go our way, it's not life attacking us. It's attacking what we thought life was supposed to be, our concept of life. There's 2 quotes that I like from Going Beyond. What it means to live spiritually is to not participate in the struggle. It means that the events that happen in the moment belong to the moment. They don't belong to you. They have nothing to do with you. You must stop defining yourself in relationship to them and just let them come and go. Your moments, your experiences, they're your experiences, but they're also the moment's experiences. Say you're driving to the store and then somebody flicks you off. You don't know what's going through that person's mind. You don't know why that person flicked you off per se. They probably flicked you off because they were having a bad day, because they thought that you were somebody else. And so that's just like the smallest example of like the moment belongs to the moment, and that's also why you shouldn't dwell in the moment. Another one was you can devote your life to the process of making sure everything fits within your limited model, or you can devote your life to freeing yourself from the limits of your model. Be aware that that house is indefinite. That house isn't everything. That house does not have all the answers. That's also what I like to think about, is that every person who has their own house in their head, you know, that's why the world ends every day. It's because people die every day. So someone's world is ending every day. Part 5 is living life. So first and foremost, you have to make the decision that you want to be happy. Make the decision that no matter what happens, you're not going to close your heart. If you want to be happy, you have to let go of the part of you that wants to create melodrama. So your inner roommate that's always wanting to put a screen in front of you. Whenever you feel your heart closing, remember if it's worth giving up your happiness for. Meditation on centering yourself is what will help you pick yourself up, to remind yourself that you are the conscious one who is experiencing life. It talks about meditating and how, you know, it's a good practice to not only do like once a year, and not even to just do it's very, I feel like, taught like, oh, do meditation, you feel anxious, meditate. But if you don't know how to meditate, or if you don't know what the purpose of the meditation is, it's not going to work. So it says like, think of it that when you're meditating, that you are constantly taking that higher seat within yourself. You're always in the higher throne. Like it's the throne, your inner roommate, and then it's the world. There's a quote that I want to bring up. There's no reason for stress or problems. Stress only happens when you resist life's events. If you're neither pulling life towards you or pushing it away, then you're not creating any resistance. Page 149. It uses the analogy of thinking of your energy with a pendulum. It's this pendulum that's able to swing back and forth. You have it swing into your good energy, you have it swing into your bad energy, and basically when you don't hold on to energy, good or bad, it doesn't lean towards any. And so it says that when you don't hold on to even good energy, because even when you're like on that high, when you come down, it being centered, when it's in the process of being centered, it throws you off balance, and so you don't feel good. Sit back and look at what you think you need. If you were going to die in a week, those priorities would change. Death is a great teacher in that way, because it can come to anybody at any moment. To be aware is to have an answer to that what would you do in a week question, and that answer is to be okay living the same way you're living right now. We all have a limited time on earth, and with your limited time, you really want to be fruitful with your time. You know, you don't want to just waste it away. You don't want to be living for like 50 years and then all of a sudden death comes knocking on your door, and then you're like, wait, I still want to tell my, I don't know, grandkids, my parents that I love them, don't take me yet. And then, you know, death is gonna be like, well, you had like 50-60 years to do that. What have you been doing? So it really talks about like death, because in order to live life, you have to know the importance of death. Oh, another one is that there's no such thing as YOLO. You don't only live once. You live every day and you die once. Take care of the days that you're here and live fully. It talks about the way of the Tao. It is to keep your inner pendulum centered, to eat but not to eat too much, to feel but not to feel too much. Spiritual growth can be taught, but to really grow with its teachings is to experience it. You can read a book about self-growth, but if you don't implement the material, then you don't grow. The book does connect on the final chapter spirituality and religion. When you become spiritual, when you implement the practices in this book, you have similar effects to what religious people experience. But it kind of gives a good analogy with spirituality and religion and how they converge to make their teachings make sense. Like, does that make sense? I hope it does. Those are all the parts for part 5. I really hope that this video was insightful, fun, interesting. This is not sponsored. This is just a really good book that I feel like has changed my perception of life in a very positive way. So that's why I wanted to review this book and kind of just break it down. Like, okay, I read this book and I loved it, but what did I love about it? Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video or in some other part of the internet. Bye.